Today on Capechi's Corner, we're going to look at parallelograms. When we look at the definition of a parallelogram, it is a quadrilateral, which is a four-sided figure with both pairs of opposite sides parallel. So in this case, my pink arrows are one side that are parallel and my purple arrows are the other ones. Now, we have a couple other properties of parallelogram that are important that we'll see over and over again. Okay, so the first one is the definition. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. We also know that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. So we have opposite angles are congruent. We also have both pairs of opposite sides congruent. And we have diagonals that bisect each other. We'll talk about that in just a second. And we also have consecutive angles, meaning in order of angles that are supplementary. Okay, so let's just look at this parallelogram that I drew. So I know in number 2, both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. So this angle is congruent to this one, opposite. This angle is congruent to that one. Again, that's opposite. Now we have also opposite sides are congruent. Right? Our definition, we also said that opposite sides are parallel. Okay, now I'm going to erase some of that just to get it. We'll start over again just so we can look at the last two. Now, if you remember the parallelogram, the opposite sides are parallel, right? So if those two are parallel and this is a transversal, then this angle here and this angle here would be same side interior angles, which makes them supplementary. Now, they are considered consecutive angles. Consecutive angles are in order. So we go from this one to this one. Those two would be consecutive, so they would be supplementary. We could also say this one and this one. They are also consecutive and they are supplementary. Okay? So next to each other is consecutive. Now, we also know that diagonals bisect each other. They're not necessarily equal. They bisect each other. So if I have this diagonal and this diagonal, I know that this piece is equal to that one, and I know that piece is equal to that one. So they bisect each other. All right, so let's just kind of recap here. In a parallelogram, opposite sides, they are both congruent. They are both congruent, and they are parallel. We know that consecutive angles are supplementary, meaning that they add up and equal to 180. We know that in a parallelogram, diagonals bisect each other, which means that they split each other in half. Okay, so we're going to get a lot of practice with this, and the more you do, the better off you'll get. Okay, so let's look at this diagram that we have here. If AD, this segment right here is 20, then I know BC is the opposite side, right? So that's congruent, so that's going to be 20. If I know that AB, if this side is 13, then I know DC on the other side is also 13 because the opposite sides are congruent. Okay, now if I know that DB, which is one of my diagonals, we know if DB is equal to 22, then DE would be equal to half, right? So if this whole thing is 22, then DE would be half of that, which is 11. Okay, let's take a look at the other diagonal. If AE, which is half of this part here, then we know this other half, right, is also going to be 18. So AC, the whole thing is going to be 36. All right, so let's take a look at some angles. So if I have the measure of angle ADC, this whole piece is 115. Then the measure of angle ABC over here is also 115 because they're opposite angles, and opposite angles are parallel. I'm sorry, opposite angles are congruent. All right, so let's look at the next one. If DAB, let's say let's get rid of this. If I have DAB is right here is 75, then ADC, this angle right here, is going to be supplementary, right? So that's going to make that 105 because 105 plus 75 is equal to 180. Right? If the measure of angle AED, if this right here is 72, and they want to know what the measure of angle DEC is, this angle right here, well, that's a straight angle, right? So we know that that is going to have a measure of 108 because I add them together and I get 180. Okay, let's move over to the next column. I have the measure of angle 1 is 30. So the measure of angle 4, this one right here, now they are alternate interior angles, remember, because this side is parallel and these other pair is parallel as well. So angle 4 and angle 1 are alternate interior, so they're congruent, so it's also going to be 30. If I go back and I have measure of angle ADC, right here, if this whole thing is 130, and the measure of angle 1 is 35. I just need this little piece right here, right? But this whole thing, if this is 130, I know this whole thing has to only be 50 because they're consecutive angles and they're supplementary. So the measure of angle 2 is going to be 15. Okay? All right, now we're going to get some algebra mixed in with that geometry. So let's take a look. So if I have AC, this whole diagonal here is 30. And then an AE, which is half of it, is 3x plus 3. They want us to solve for x. Now, there's two ways we can do this, right? I know that 3x plus 3 is half of that 30. So half of 30 gives me 15. I also know that if this side is 3x plus 3, this side is also 3x plus 3. So I have two of them. So I could have also done 2 times 3x plus 3 is equal to 30. And both ways that you work that, x is going to have a value of 4. So again, it really is a personal preference. Maybe it depends on the numbers they give you, how you want to work that. So x is equal to 4. Okay, looking at the next one, we have DC is equal to 6x plus y. So we're going to label that side. And we have BC is 3x plus 2y. And then we have AB is equal to 25. And AD is equal to 14. Now I know that opposite sides are congruent, so I know 6x plus y is equal to 25. And I know 3x plus 2y is equal to 14. Now I have two variables and two equations, so I have a linear system, right? So we can either use substitution or elimination to solve it. I like elimination. I just think it's a little quicker, but that's okay. And remember elimination, I'm trying to eliminate one variable. So if I multiply this first equation by -2, I get -12x minus 2y is equal to -50. And if I rewrite my bottom equation, now the reason I did that, I want to eliminate my y's. I have a -2y and a +2y. So they will zero out. So I'm left with -9x is equal to -36. So x is equal to 4. Put a 4 there. And I'll do the same thing now with y. I just have to substitute it back in. Okay, so if I use 3 times 4 plus 2y is equal to 14, I get 12 plus 2y is equal to 14. So 2y is equal to 2, so y is equal to 1. Now, the good thing about this is I can check it. I always love when I can check things in math. It just helps me make sure that I'm doing something correctly. And if I know I made a mistake, I can fix it, okay? So I know x is 4 and y is 1. So if I go to this side, 6 times 4 gives me 24, plus 1 gives me 25. So that's what I want, right? Those two sides are supposed to be the same. And the same thing with segment BC. I have 3 times 4, which gives me 12. Plus 2 times 1 gives me 2, which gives me 14. And again, those opposite sides should be congruent. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next segment here that we're going to work on. We're going to find the missing measurements of all the parallelograms. Now, if you look at this 15 to 33, there's a lot going on there. So I always think that it's easiest when you're doing this and it's involved, just label the diagrams and see what you have. Okay, so let's start with this. If this side's 10, I know this side's 10. If BC is 22, I know AD is 22. Now, again, I know that here I'm going to work with my diagonals now. I have 13 here. This is going to be 13. This is 12. This is 12. Okay, so I have all my sides labeled up. Now I'm going to work on my angles. Okay, so let's see. Remember, I have parallel lines. So I know if this is 23, we have alternate interior. This is 23. Same thing as this. If this is 47, this is 47. Now, I also know that right here, 47, at 47, this angle and this angle together are supplementary, right? Because they're consecutive. So the missing angle that I'm missing here is 38 degrees. All right, then I'm going to do alternate interior, 38 here, 72 here. Now, the other thing is I have a bunch of triangles here, right? So I can figure out measures of angles in there. So if this is 47, and this is 72. I know this angle right here is 61. Vertical angles are 61. They're congruent. I also know I have a straight angle, so this is going to be 119, and this is going to be 119. Okay. Now, with that being said, I can kind of label up all these things that I have. Okay, so I filled in all those blanks. So if you want to right now, if you want to pause this video and do the same thing on your diagram, filling in all those blanks depending on how you found all the measurements of the segments and the angles, and then make sure your values are accurate, that might be a good idea. All right, let's move on here. Find the value of each variable. Okay, so again, some of them are going to be basic, some of them are going to be a little bit more involved. And number one, we have opposite sides are congruent. So A is equal to 9. Same thing, B is equal to 11. Okay, and number two, I have X plus 2 is equal to 4. So X is equal to 2. And I have Y minus 5 is equal to 12, because again, they're opposite sides. So Y is equal to 17. Okay, taking a look at number 3. I have two things here. I have opposite sides. So I have 3x plus 4 is equal to 16. So 3x is equal to 12, and x is equal to 4. And then I have opposite angles, right? These are opposite angles, so they are congruent. That's the relationship. So y is equal to, oh, not 4. I did that wrong. Y is equal to 116. Okay, now again, all these values that they're finding, you can verify them, double check them, substitute them back in is a good idea. All right, looking at number 4, I have 25 is the same as 8g minus 3. So that gives me 8g is equal to 28. Divide both sides by 8. In this case, I have g is equal to 3.5. Now, again, I have angles that are consecutive, right? These angles are consecutive. So what's going to happen there is when I add them together, and I'll do this over here, I have f plus 30 plus 72 is going to be equal to 180, right? So this gives me f plus 102 is equal to 180. So f is equal to 78. Okay, moving on to the next one, number 5 up here. Now we're working with diagonals, and we know that we bisect each other. They're not necessarily congruent, but we're going to bisect them. So I have 9 is equal to 2n minus 1. So 2n is equal to 10. So n is equal to 5. And I have the other diagonal is m plus 8 is equal to 3m. So 2m is equal to 8. So m is equal to 4. Number 6, again, diagonal. So I have 3j is equal to 5j minus 9. So that gives me negative 2j is equal to negative 9. So j is equal to 4.5. And I have the other diagonal is k plus 10 is equal to 6k. So 5k is equal to 10. So k is equal to 2. Okay? Great job on parallelograms today. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.